Hey Channel Insiders, welcome back to Channel Insider Partner POV, your source for untapped opportunities and unfiltered opinions in the IT channel, all to help you make better business decisions. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso. My guest today is Natalia Scheidegger, CEO of Australia-based MSP Third Mill. If you're new to running a managed services business, and honestly, even if you're not, prepare to be inspired. Natalia took over Third Mill 10 years ago in the wake of losing a family member, but she quickly found her passion and changed the course of her professional life. Welcome, Natalia.
Thanks, Katie. It's great to be here.
It's so great to have you. I'm sure that my audience recognizes you from a past video that we did at PAX8 Beyond. That's where we met. And I said, I absolutely have to get this woman on the show. She is such a force. So thank you so much for being a part of Channel Insider Partner POV.
No, thank you. And it was great to meet you in Denver.
It was a good time. A lot has happened since then in the world of technology and the IT channel. We were talking a little bit about it before coming into the show. And before we talk about Third Mill, before we talk about all the great stuff that you're doing for your customers, we have to talk a little bit about the latest gossip on the street here. Not gossip, but news. In the time that we're recording this, you're the first Microsoft partner that I'm speaking to since the CrowdStrike-driven outage. Luckily, your customers were not impacted. You yourself were not impacted, but you got ahead of it because your customers were saying, should we be waiting for the door to slam shut? Should we be waiting for something to happen and for the blue screen of death to sort of pop up all of a sudden? How did you get ahead of it with your customers, just letting them know that there's nothing to worry about and that they're in the clear? And why was that so important for you to do instead of just saying, hey, they could write it out. They'll see that nothing happens?
Yeah, it was, what an afternoon. So obviously we're based in Australia, so it all sort of started to come to a head quite late in the afternoon on a Friday. And I was fortunate that through the MSP WhatsApp channels I'm part of, we'd picked up quite early on that the underlying cause was CrowdStrike. And therefore, we knew that while the news outlets were still reporting a Microsoft outage, it was a CrowdStrike thing under the hood, and therefore it wasn't going to flow through to our customers. So I got the early inside scoop from the MSP networks, passed that through to my team, but we were seeing customers worried. And that was the moment where I realized we got to be proactive about this. We can't just kind of sit back and take out the popcorn and watch the world burn. So I got some comms out as quickly as I could to customers outlining, this is what we know. It's a CrowdStrike thing. We don't use CrowdStrike. Your corporate devices are not going to be affected. If you are concerned, reach out. And if anyone you know is affected or if some of your personal devices are affected, let us know. And we got a lot of positive feedback from customers off that messaging because we kind of got ahead of it and we knew they needed to hear something from us to have that comfort that their PCs weren't going to be affected. So it was quite the afternoon, but we were very lucky to not be impacted.
I'm really thrilled to hear that you didn't have to deal with that. But I think it just goes to show you that the customer is not often a tech-focused individual or group of individuals. And even when nothing's going wrong in their department, you need to let them know, and it's not going to go wrong. Everything is okay. So I think that level of trust really goes beyond just reaching out when something goes wrong.
Absolutely. And I could completely see it from their perspective because the news was still reporting it as a Microsoft outage. And in their minds, they use Microsoft. And so they couldn't understand the technical connection behind the why and it's actually this third-party product that was doing it. So, and sometimes you have to put yourself in the customer's shoes and go, well, actually their concerns are valid. And it's very rare that you over-communicate. I've never met an MSP that over-communicates with their customers. So it was important that we got that message out, and I'm glad we did.
So why don't we go ahead and dive into the real reason why we're here, and it's really to get to know you and get to know Third Mill. Talk to me a little bit about Third Mill. You're an MSP. You've been running the business for 10 years yourself. And tell me, just how would you describe Third Mill? Because truly, it is your baby at this point. So when you go and talk to people about it, how do you tell them what Third Mill is?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And you're right. So 10 years on, the business is mine. I sort of inherited it. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But while it is mine, I feel like that same spirit of what it was founded on continues to hold true. And we talk about it on our website. The name Third Mill comes from third millennium. So it was started by my father in 1997 at the turn of the century, the millennium, I guess. And the idea was that we were always going to be bringing our customers to kind of the leading edge of technology, like the next generation of technology. And so it's been a challenge for us to continue to push our customers to what's coming and take them down the path of the latest technology. And I think we do that. And that's certainly been my journey. I know we push cloud and we are very much cloud first in our thinking. And we jumped on that much earlier than perhaps a lot of MSPs did in the industry, because I didn't come with any preconceived notions about on-prem versus cloud. So I always sort of say that's the spirit that drives Third Mill, is we're really trying to kind of go to that next cutting edge, and we love to play with new tech. And it means my engineers get to play with new tech, which helps with recruitment and with retention, but also my customers get to know that they're in good hands and that we're going to be innovating with them.
I had never considered that before when it comes to retention, about you want your engineers to constantly feel like they're being challenged and that they're thinking about the technology that's new and coming in, and they get a new thing to play with, literally. So that's funny just to think about that when you bring that up.
It comes up almost every interview that we do. And I think because our branding is so cloud focused as well, and we do attract a lot of talent of people who are really wanting to double down in their cloud skills, and they're coming from either businesses, internal IT, where they're not getting exposure to some of those new technologies, and they want to get their hands on those toys. And it's what keeps them the happiest, is knowing that they can play and experiment, and we give them that space to work on the new tech. It's something I learned. I didn't know that when I first started, but over the years I've seen how important it is.
Lesson in employee retention, everybody. Give them new things to play with. When they say, I want to play with the coolest, newest thing, let them do it. Really good advice right off the bat there. Let's talk about your customers. You specialize in the financial sector specifically, but talk to me about who are your customers, what do they typically do, and how big are they?
Financial services more broadly, very, very steep niche in insurance and insurance brokerages across Australia, but now expanding out into funds and super funds and a lot of other kind of financial services and sort of style businesses, because under the hood, they all work quite similarly, where they have a lot of customer data and there's a big lens of security, and there's also a strong regulatory environment wrapped around it. And so we've been able to not only understand the applications that they use and how they work, but also like what the sort of the security environment around them needs to be, and the guidelines and regulations that, you know, the APRA and their financial services licenses require of them. So that's what's kind of helped us to push us to make sure our cybersecurity posture meets those regulations, but also just this deep understanding of their business. Outside of the kind of the vertical space, the only other criteria I really have with customers is Microsoft. So like that's our deep expertise, and we don't play outside of that. And size wise, you know, 5 seats through to sort of 200 seats, we can and work and service well. Really, where we get the most success is when the customers recognize the value of the partnership with the MSP. And we are the phone call, and we are the advisor, and we are the CTO, the CIO to the business. In some instances, there is someone in that seat on the other side, but they still work very much in partnership with us. So we love the customers where that partnership is strong, because we can do so much more for them.
It's interesting to me because when you talk about those customers inside of financial services, I think people that are more afraid of taking on that new technology, taking on cloud, taking on that tech that we're also excited about, where we go, what's the next trend that we can implement? Is that a difficult conversation for you to have with them? And how do you work through that with those particular clients when you're explaining to them, this is safe, or we will make sure that you are safe in adopting this new technology and it's only going to make you better?
That's very interesting, actually. I think a lot of the clients that we work with and have brought on were born in the cloud, because they're businesses that aren't very old. And so a lot of them didn't have servers. They sort of, you know, rose, because financial services business do grow quite quickly as well. And so a lot of them have only been around in the market for a couple of years. And I had one customer tell me this: we were born in the cloud. And that's when I realized that that's why I think there is a lot of synergy between us and the industry, because they understand the cloud and the benefit behind it. The finance and the maths behind it makes sense, right? The fixed cost recurring revenue, no upgrades, OPEX versus CAPEX conversation about how IT looks in the cloud versus not. And then, so they kind of intuitively understand that. And also, like, financial services workers, they're busy professional services workers, and they need things to just work and have a quick feedback loop on their IT. And so cloud just works because it's all sort of per user, pull down what the apps you need. And that's this kind of multi-app environment. Yeah, these financial services customers, they have lots of applications that they use. There's a lot of them, and they want to be able to pick and choose those. So it's up to us to kind of create that environment where they can have that flexibility and that freedom, but with the security around it. So the reality is, actually, you'd be surprised, but many financial services customers in the SMB space, I suspect probably as you go to mid-market and enterprise, some of those hesitations around cloud may come up, but in the SMB space, they're innovative, they're agile, and cloud just makes sense to them. I have noticed other industries, other professional services industries. Legal is one where there is that hesitation around cloud, and often comes from their experience with cloud data and the legal implications of it and the fear around that. And therefore, sometimes they can be harder to bring across the line. But financial services, particularly in that SMB space, they're surprisingly innovative on this front. They get at the hard tech, and they're quite reasonably tech savvy relative to other industries.
That's an interesting takeaway. And you're right. When I think of legal, I was kind of looping that into the same thought and assumption with financial services. So it's an interesting take to hear you say that I love the term born in the cloud. So when a customer uses that to their IT leader, I'm immediately like, okay, they know what's going on. They know what they're talking about.
They know what's going on. Yeah. And it's a high tech literacy in as a result of that as well, right?
Oh, very good point. You teased to this a little bit earlier. I'd love to talk about how you came to be CEO of Third Mill. It's an incredible story, and I just love to step back and have you tell our audience, with what you're comfortable with telling them, how you came to be.
Third Mill started in 1997 by my father. He was an immigrant from Brazil, sort of done with the corporate world, started up Third Mill as a one-man band at the time and slowly grew the business over the years. He was a born entrepreneur, just a mind that just saw 10 years ahead of everybody else and grew a name in the industry for being that kind of mover and shaker. He grew it to about sort of, 10 to 15 staff. But then in 2014, he passed away really suddenly. And I was off doing corporate strategy at Deloitte, and Mum called me up. She was in the business running accounts for him, and she said, I think need some help. And so I stepped into the business, and I did not know anything about technology. I couldn't have known the difference between a router and a firewall if you had labeled them. And I was obviously a baby. I was very young. I was going back 10 years, and I had to sort of quite literally step into my father's shoes. I sat at his desk that first day, and I think I just remembered that sense and that weight of, what do I do now? And working out what the days needed to look like. So that was how I took on the business. 10 years ago in 2014, I stepped in together with Mum. We bumbled our way through. The early years, without a doubt, were some of the hardest ones of my life. They talk about kind of the brain fog that comes with grief. And I think that that's what was happening for those first couple of years, let alone the fact that obviously the business, financially, it was hard at the time because we were still sort of trying to deal with the aftermath of everything. And I think I had no intentions of staying. It was one of those things where I was going to come in, sort of fix it up, and then sell it and go back to corporate life. But I think the entrepreneur bug bit me slowly poisoned me is probably a better description, because it was insidious, right? And the years went by, and suddenly we started to grow, and things got better, and the team grew, we got new people in, and suddenly I found myself kind of addicted to the pace and the change and the challenge. And so 10 years on, we're much bigger, over double in size now, and still growing. And I think I am proof the entrepreneurs are made and not born, right? Like, I wasn't set out for this life, but I certainly am here now.
First of all, thank you so much for sharing that with me and with our audience. I just think it's such an incredible story. And I absolutely know how proud your father would be of you, seeing that you've stepped into this role and just become the entrepreneur that he was, and just absolutely crushing it over there. So congratulations just on all of your success for that. So this is 10 years for you now. And you mentioned in the beginning that you said, I didn't know the difference between a router and a firewall, and I didn't know anything about tech. And now to hear where you are at this point, kind of walk me through that, of where you felt that you started to really get the bug, as you said, to really, it bit you and you wanted to learn more. What was that journey like for you, of where you said, I think that I'm getting it, and I think this is the direction I need to take the business in, because this is what technology is all about and what it needs from me?
Okay, I think I'll take up the rest of the time answering that question because there's so much to it, right? And I sort of unpack it in three different ways because I think about this a lot. I think there was the angle of the technology piece and upskilling myself in the tech and knowing how much I needed to know in order to make the decisions I had to make. And so that was sort of one learning path. And then the kind of second learning path was the leadership management one, where I had never led people or teams, and learning and understanding and growing in that space and what my managerial style and leadership style was like. And that's an ongoing journey that I think I've only really just come into my own. And that was just kind of this whole thing. And then I think the final piece that it is harder to talk about, but I'm now realizing was so much a part of it was being a woman. I think I was afraid and risk averse and in my shell and afraid to talk about the challenges and afraid to reach out for help and so many things in that in an industry that was, just like all men all the time, that I think it took me a while to really kind of find my feet in that as well and to learn to take risks and fight some of those natural tendencies that I had. And I think that was in and of itself this whole journey. And so the three of those things had to kind of grow almost at the same rate in order for me to be able to become successful at what I do. And I'm still so not far enough down the journey as much as I should be. But I recognize now that I was battling on the three fronts. I lacked the tech, I lacked the skill set, I lacked the kind of entrepreneurial cowboy, mentality. So on the tech front, the main thing for me was to make it clear that I was the dumbest person in the room. And so I would ask questions of my engineers all the time. I don't understand that. What does that mean? What does that mean? Not try and out-talk them, outsmart them, and be frank sometimes with customers to say, look, this is where my tech skill taps out. Like, I'm going to go back to the team. And that helped because there was this kind of inbuilt humility in me from the beginning. And I mentioned before that journey around cloud. And so I think sometimes my approach to technology is quite first principles because I don't have any of that legacy switches, wires, cables, servers, command line view of the world. I sort of see technology as this kind of first principles. Right. Tell me what you've tried, what you haven't tried. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And I just think about it in a very different way. So today, I still rely very heavily on my team. I've never been able to jump on a server console and troubleshoot, but I am technical enough to be dangerous. And it's enough. It's enough to be able to have the conversations I need to have with the customers to understand strategically how technology can help them and then know when to tap out to my team. So that's kind of that tech piece. The leadership management piece was one of the toughest ones. And the reality was for a really long time, I didn't actually call myself an entrepreneur. I think I had this view that I'd stepped into the family business and was running like the local cafe down the road and like that there was nothing glamorous about it. And I'll never forget when I got on a phone call with someone, it was a vendor or something, and they said, oh, so you're running business. I was like, yeah. And they said, oh, well, there's this organization, an entrepreneurs organization, and you should join up. And I said, entrepreneur? What? That's not who I am. And that was a whole journey in and of itself, like meeting other business owners and realizing, oh, right, I'm one of these people. And through that, building out my management leadership style, through learning what other business owners were like and the fears that they had and understanding that their problems were the same as my problems and that I wasn't bad at what I was doing. It was just, this is why running a business is hard, right? And then the final piece around the risk aversion and being able to take risks and deal with the stresses of it all, I think that was just a time piece and a mentorship piece. I think I needed cheerleaders and network in industry support to get me out of my shell a little bit in that sense. And that one was a whole other journey as well that took me too long. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's how I've sort of seen the journey.
An incredibly graceful answer to a chunky question that I gave you. So thank you so much.
Don't ask me any more of those. Simple ones from now on only, please.
Yes or no questions only from now on, I promise. I really have to just kind of double click on what you said about the risk aversion as a woman in tech. It's so common from so many women that I speak to. And, I had somebody reach out to me recently and said, how did you beat imposter syndrome? And I said, what? Beat it? You never do. You find a way around it. It's a hill that you just have to figure out how to climb over. And I love what you said about finding your support system and your cheerleaders, because those are the people who are going to be able to get you through and get you over that hill. So cheers to that. My conversation with Natalia is not over. Come back Tuesday to learn how she encourages new MSP leaders to ignite their own journeys. Thanks so much to Natalia for joining me, and thank you for watching or listening. Check out all episodes of Channel Insider Partner POV on our website, channelinsider.com, or go watch on our YouTube page at channelinsider_news and trends. You can also listen to this episode and all episodes as a podcast on your favorite listening platform. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow wherever possible so you never miss an episode. Once again, I'm Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.